You are unlikely to see rust on the bodies of sports, except on the frame. Some do not pay attention to it, believing that the thickness of the profile is enough even for grandchildren. So it is, but keep in mind, VIN is stamped on the frame, behind the rear right wheel. If corrosion destroys it, problems in the traffic police are guaranteed. The VIN on the frame of this car is already corroded, but you can still make out the signs. A simple tip: while the number is intact, cover it liberally with anti-corrosive. Many owners complain about the soft paintwork. As soon as you catch a branch, a greasy scratch forms on the body. Keep this in mind, and, intending to service the car yourself, take care of protecting the wings by covering them with some kind of blanket for the duration of the work. If you store the car outdoors, replace the lamp fixtures. Regular self-dapping screws are easily twisted through the gap between the optics and the fifth door, after which they deprive you of 4,000 rubles in one motion. If you put self-dapping screws under the hex head, the tool simply will not fit into the slot. Of the body equipment, the attention of the tube to the rear heater, or to the additional air conditioner, if the car is from the United Arab Emirates, is required. These tubes tend to rust at the attachment points, so it would be nice to treat them with anti-corrosive. There are a lot of cars imported from Europe and America in our market. Among them there may be drowned with an emulsion in the aggregates. The seller, of course, will not say this, so a thorough audit would be highly desirable. If you intend to conquer serious off-road, put strong tubes on the breathers of the units, similar to how it was done on the rear axle, and bring them higher, for example, under the hood, putting them on the ends of the fuel filter from the carburetor car. So it will be possible to protect the units from inhalation of dust. Engine. In the engines of American cars, sometimes there are a lot of tarry deposits from cheap mineral water. If you immediately replace it with synthetics with effective detergent additives, and even more so use flushing oils, deposits washed off the walls can clog the oil receiver, with all the ensuing consequences. It is more reasonable to fill an inexpensive semi-synthetics a couple of times, changing it after 4,000 to 5,000 kilometers, and then switch to a better oil. Often the real mileage of the car is unknown, because on this model it is not difficult to twist the odometer. Even the dealer's scanner MUT2 will not help, in the latest version, MUT3. Therefore, for complete certainty, replace the timing belt along with the rollers. It is necessary every 90,000 kilometers. This does not apply only to the 4M40 diesel engine, 2.8L, where the drive is gear chain. On a 4D56 diesel engine, 2.5L, there are two toothed belts. One drives the camshaft and high-pressure fuel pump. The second drives the balance shafts. This second belt is considered by many to be less significant, which is deeply mistaken. As soon as it breaks or jumps off, the main belt crushes it under itself, breaking through the oil pump housing. Some craftsmen, knowing about this feature of the balancer, do not put it on at all, putting up with vibrations. However, they are not so significant. Diesel 4D56 was repeatedly forced, bringing the power to 136 horsepower. It is desirable that the batteries are the same in capacity, brand and date of manufacture. Diesel 4D56 was repeatedly forced, bringing the power to 136 horsepower. It is desirable that the batteries are the same in capacity, brand and date of manufacture. More radical simplifications are also known when the balancers themselves are removed. The channels in the block for lubricating the necks and the outlet openings of the shafts are muffled. But it is hardly worth adopting such experience, because now it is not a problem to buy high-quality belts. After installing them, make sure that all the marks match, and the balance shafts are oriented with the counterweights down. The piston of the first cylinder should be at top dead center. The fuel equipment of diesel engines as a whole is very tenacious. Up to 150 to 200,000 kilometers it is unlikely to require attention. Of course, there are exceptions, because the fuel at our gas stations is still far from European, and water is sometimes present in it. Therefore, drain the sludge from the filter regularly. Do not rely on the warning pictogram in the instrument panel. It happens that the water sensor is lying. If the engine, even warmed up, smokes, get ready to repair the injection pump and/or injectors. There is no shortage of specialists and spare parts, and the prices are quite reasonable. It is better to hand over the pump for repair along with nozzles. It's not just about a mechanical injection pump. Let them check them too. When turning the nozzles, make sure that the sealing rings come out with them, and do not remain in the wells. If you still stick, separate with a simple steel wire hook, flattening the tip and bending it at a right angle. With the same device, it is convenient to clean soot from mating surfaces. The return line of diesel injectors sometimes sweats. But on this motor, which has passed 120,000 kilometers, everything is dry so far. Yes, and the injection pump works like a clock. Before removing the pump on 4M40, check the marks. It happens that the crankshaft pulley, where the mark is, rotates relative to the hub due to the delamination of the damper, and then it will not be easy to set the injection advance angle. Another feature of the 4M40 is an oil cooler built into the cylinder block. It is often finished off by pouring the first antifreeze that comes across into the cooling system. Mobile Extra is recommended. If the liquid leaves, there is an emulsion in the lubrication system, and oil in the antifreeze, then the oil cooler is already full of holes. On gasoline V6s, antifreeze most often leaks through the pump seal with the small loop pipe. There is a rubber ring that shrinks over time. The part is cheap, but the replacement work will cost a tidy sum. Access is inconvenient. Motors 6G74, GDI, 3.5L, with direct injection are very capricious. Often a cold start is accompanied by a caustic exhaust with burning, spitting, and unstable operation. This is a sure signal to change gas stations, otherwise you risk not starting at all in cold weather. I just wish I knew where the same gas station that sells the right gasoline. Fortunately, there are few cars with such engines in our market, exclusively right-hand drive. Deformed modifications of the 6G74 with a compression ratio of 9 and distributed injection went to the American market. They are not so fastidious and work fine on the 92nd. The most common gasoline engines are 3-liter 6G72. They are perhaps the most reliable. Of course, there are problems with converters, but extremely rarely. However, when buying a car, do not be stingy with diagnostics. When changing the spark plugs, applies to all V6s, check the flatness of the intake manifold flanges. It will have to be removed, otherwise you won't get close. We give the finished part for polishing. Transmission. Consequences of driving on a full drive on dry asphalt. The gears of the main pair were ground into flour. Easy Select transmission. In the Easy Select transmission, vacuum valves and a front axle connection sensor deserve attention. There are failures of transfer mode sensors, however, more often on more advanced versions of Super Select. Right-hand drive cars were equipped with such a transmission. Suspension. Pendants are endowed with a huge margin of safety. In the back, with a continuous bridge, there is nothing to break. Unless the stabilizer bushings on versions with spring suspension will wear out by 100 to 120,000 kilometers. The front suspension is borrowed from the older Pajero, second generation, a larger and heavier car. If you do not forget to inject ball and steering balls, they will last at least 120 and 150,000 kilometers, respectively.